Hey folks, I'm Mark Ryan. This is Super Review, and this is the Colorfly Quintet, which is a new IM from the company Colorfly, which I'm not sure how many people are familiar with this company. Apparently they've got some history with digital audio players. Check out their website. Yeah, and they've got a handful of interesting DAPs, but they've also now got this, the Quintet, which is not an inexpensive IEM. The Quintet, as the name suggests, it's a 5-driver earphone, which 5 drivers per side, 4 balanced armatures, 1 dynamic driver. And for that, Colorfly's charging $900, which frankly is quite a bit. But obviously, as we've seen around this channel, $900 is not unheard of. You know, for $900, as you spend more in the IEM game, you start just kind of getting more expectations around build quality and of course sound. But does the Colorfly Quintet live up to those expectations? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I have spent the past couple of weeks living with the Quintet and comparing it to some other IEMs. I do have some other stuff that costs roughly this much as well. But yeah, just really trying to figure out, how does this thing stack up? What does it sound signature? And do I recommend it? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Like all my other reviews, this is a live stream. If you're watching now live, you have any questions about the Quintet or anything else that we talk about today, please do leave it in the live chat. At the end of the review, I'll give this thing a score, but then we'll have a little back and forth conversation. Hopefully I can answer any open questions about the Quintet. And also, before we get into the review, a quick shout out to Shenzhen Audio for sending this in for review. I've got it on loan from them, and yeah, appreciate spending some time with this IM. But that's enough of the preamble. Let's dive into the details about what I think about the Colorfly Quintet. And before we talk about the build quality and stuff like that, we'll just talk a little bit about what comes inside the box and the packaging. Again, I mentioned, you know, when you spend more money on an IEM, you expect better sound, you expect better build quality, but you also expect better packaging. And I don't know, the packaging here on the Colorfly Quintet is pretty nice. You got this pretty handsome embossed gold stamping, which is cool. It's got, I don't know, I'm not going to open the whole thing, but it's got this little butterfly mechanism, which is fun. But I don't know, what matters more is what's inside the box. And what you get is quite a good selection of ear tips. We'll punch in on that so you can take a look as best as possible. There's just a whole bunch of different sizes of these silicone ear tips, as well as a couple different sizes of foam ear tips. And of course, you get your obligatory toothbrush. I just stuck with the stock ear tips that came on here, and they were fine for me. But also wanted to highlight this little carry case that the Quintet comes with, which frankly is pretty nice. This is actually made out of wood. Let's see if I can give it the wood smell test, and it definitely smells like wood. And it's got this logo kind of burned into the top of it. I think this is actually a pretty nice little package. You know, I talk about a lot of the times these carry cases that come with IEMs being a little bit larger than I like, and I would say this one's still a little bit larger than my, like, this is not pocketable, obviously, that's pretty thick, but for something that you're gonna like put on a shelf or leave in your coffee table or something like this is actually frankly pretty nice. And it's, you know, it's nice and smooth wood. It's also got these little notches in it that mean that you gotta fit it together just right, and I don't know, there's something satisfying about that. So Colorfly, thanks for that. But that will leave us to talking here about the build quality of the IM itself. And we'll start with a little bit of commentary on the cable, which for the most part, I think is actually a pretty nice cable. You know, I think the cable is a little bit on the, it's a little bit on the thick side. Not like super thick, but you can kind of see it's got a little bit of extra weight to it. And it feels a little bit heftier and nicer than your average budget IEM cable, which is about as much as you can expect, if I'm honest. But yeah, pretty nice. You can see that the behavior of it is quite solid. It is lying flat. It is not memory prone. It is not kinky, and generally pretty happy with it. It is just kind of like a simple wound style. It's not like a tight braid or anything like that, which I don't usually have a strong opinion about whether this is better or worse than a braid, but I did want to call out this one part of the cable. It's a little bit, it seems like the wind is a little bit funky. Now, I will say I was not the first person to have this IM, so I don't know if out of the box it comes like this, but this maybe would be an effect that you might expect to happen if you're winding up your cable the non-roadie wrap style. So this is just another plug for the roadie wrap, and as I'm plugging it, we'll do a roadie wrap on this cable just to show you how well this thing lies flat. Bam. and it's pretty handsome lying flat like that. I did also want to call out the Y split here, nice and small, and then the chin cinch, kind of like the carry case, is actually made out of a piece of wood that's got this little bit of a stamp in it. And it is, in fact, a very functional chin cinch, which is nice. It's a little bit on the large side, honestly, but I think, you know, Moondrop includes like these relatively large Y splits, and at least this is actually functional as a chin slider. So I would say I like this generally better than Moondrop's cables, at least. So yeah, pretty decent little cable. And then of course at the top, you know, roadie wrap this thing back into place. At the top we've got our preformed ear hooks, and they are on a 2-pin connector, I do believe. Actually, let me double check that. We're on 2 pins. That's right, we got 2-pin connector, and it is a bit of a recessed 2-pin, which is what I like to see. I wish more IMs, honestly. If you're gonna go the 2-pin route, make it recessed like this, because then that makes it just a more secure fit, and there's less risk of applying lateral pressure and bending the pins. So I dig that. So yeah, generally pretty happy with the cable. Let's talk about the earpieces now, which, let's see if we can get the light on them. Obviously they're black, they're a little bit on the dark side, but I think generally pretty handsome. They've got this kind of faux carbon fiber inlay. Maybe it's a real carbon fiber, I don't know. But it kind of reminds me of the pattern that you saw on something like, was it the Soft Ears RSV, the Mangard T. I feel like there's a couple of other IMs that have this texture inside, and pretty consistently I've thought it looks pretty handsome. It adds a nice depth to the visual, and then you get the gold Colorfly branding on there. I think it says Quintet on this side. But yeah, it gives it a nice depth. It feels classy, but it also doesn't feel overly ornate and ostentatious or anything like that. It's just generally a pretty handsome IM. The earpieces are relatively lightweight, but not so lightweight that they feel cheap. They do have a decent amount of weight to them, but definitely more on the lightweight side. And then as you can see here, the earpieces, the shape, and actually let me go ahead and pull off the tip so we can appreciate the shape in its entirety. The shape is this, you know, semi-custom design that reminds me a lot of Thea Audio's latest IM designs, which frankly have been some of the best fitting IMs I've ever fit. This one I would say is a little bit on the larger side versus something like the Thea Audio Legacy 4, but not excessively. We'll also take a look at that. That nozzle for you nozzle fiends out there, and I'll throw this tip back on here as I prepare to put this thing in my head. But yeah, generally pretty happy with both the aesthetics of the build, the quality of the build, and then also the fit. If I can fit this ear tip, so much pressure to do this thing live. I'm doing it wrong. The ear tip is a little bit on the soft side, which is why I'm kind of struggling to get it to stretch around this nozzle. And I guess this nozzle actually, you know, I didn't notice it in wearing it, but as I'm trying to fit this ear tip, I am noticing that it's a little bit on the large side. But again, I didn't notice it when wearing it, so for me, not so much a concern, but I guess something to consider if you are a person who deals with small ear canals. But yeah, let's go ahead and give it a fit test, and I'll show you just how well the Quintet fits. So you punch in there, and you can see that like it fills up my conchable fairly full, but it's super secure. So like if I pull on this thing, it doesn't break its seal. This is generally just about my ideal fit. Again, the Thea Audio Legacy 4 and like something like the Dunu SA6, those are kind of my benchmarks for like the absolute best fit, at least for my ears, and this is a very personal thing, I'll admit. But here with the Colorfly Quintet, too many wuh sounds in that, but yeah, here with the Quintet, this is honestly, yeah, it was pretty outstanding in terms of fit for me. So generally pretty happy with the aesthetics, fairly happy with the accessories, very happy with the fit. So how does this thing sound? So let's go ahead and dive into talking about the sound here in the Quintet as I roll this up and give you something to keep your attention. There we go. That's handsome, right? And we'll start just, you know, like I typically do, just describe the tonality. And the tone here, the tuning of the Quintet, I would describe as a bit of a lean, somewhat bright V shape. It does have a little bit of bass emphasis, but not a lot, but more it's just kind of like the balance between the bass and the mid-range. There is a little bit of a mid-range scoop, but then you get a pretty significant upper mid-range lift and a little bit of brightness in the treble. So yeah, I would describe this as a kind of a bright V-shaped sound signature, but mild on the V-shape because the bass, all right, the bass here I would say it's fairly deep. It's got this, this sturdy sense, and honestly, the bass is probably the standout character here for me. But it's not a lot of bass, right? If you're looking at comparing this to, I already mentioned the Thea Audio Legacy 4. The Legacy 4 I described as kind of a mild V shape. This has got less bass than something like the Legacy 4. There is a nice little mid bass into sub bass emphasis, maybe a little bit heavier on the mid bass emphasis, frankly, but it's not that much. So if you're looking for a big bass cannon, you're not going to be satisfied here with the Quintet. But if you like yourself just kind of like a classy amount of bass, but you still want that nice solid physicality, I honestly think that is really the strength here with the Quintet. I'm pretty happy with the bass here. It's not thick, it's not booming. It is fairly light in its tonal balance, but it still has that solid body and physicality. It's still tight, punchy, impactful. There's zero bleed, smearing, basically all the good things that I could personally say about bass in an IEM. The Quintet honestly does really quite well with that. Again, not a lot of bass, but for me, for my taste, it's actually just about perfect. But then it takes us to kind of like the upper half of the frequency response. And here's where I think the Quintet's probably not as strong. So there is quite a bit of upper mid-range lift, which for me is not bad. That just means that it brings vocals fairly forward in the mix. And generally that's actually what I appreciate. Where I would say this goes a little bit amiss is in the treble tuning, where there does seem to be just a little bit of sharpness in sort of the lower to mid treble region. And that has the effect of just giving it, I don't know, a little bit of a sharpness, a little bit of a raspiness in that vocal. So again, I mentioned the vocals are forward because of that extra little bit of treble spice there. It can make them a little bit fatiguing, not overly fatiguing. I wouldn't say that, this is definitely not the most fatiguing earphone I've heard by any stretch of the imagination, but it's enough to make it so that it's just not quite as laid back and relaxing as maybe, this wood motif might give the impression. I think also there in the treble region is where the balanced armatures start to really show that they're balanced armatures, and that's, I don't know, maybe that's not saying much, but I think that the timbre up there in the treble region starts to get a little bit clacky, a little bit plasticky, and frankly, like, it's not that bad. It's just when this thing costs $900, you start to get pretty picky about that sort of thing, and I feel like at $900, this thing is up against some pretty tough competition, and I don't know that that quality there necessarily is or warrants the price. So that's just about going to do it for my review here of the Colorfly Quintet. I think I got that one right that time. Out of 5 stars, I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a solid 3 stars. I think this is a very enjoyable listen. Again, I really quite like the bass presentation here on the Quintet. The tonal balance, for the most part, I'm quite into. I think there is probably a little bit too much of that lower to mid treble, which makes vocals a little bit raspy and a little bit hot. But for the most part, like, honestly, it's just, apart from that really nice bass, and again, if you're looking for a bassy IM, this is not it, but if you're looking for a tasteful bass, you'll probably like it. But apart from that bass, it sounds pretty ordinary, and I feel like I'm going to go ahead and reference the Thea Audio Legacy 4 again. I think this does sound a little bit better than the Legacy 4. Like, I like the bass on here better than the Legacy 4, but other than that, like, it's not that much better than the Legacy 4. And the Legacy 4 is a sub $200 IM. I feel like at sub $200, this thing would be pretty competitive. But at $900, it's a bit of a stretch. So that's my review of the Colorfly Quintet. If you're interested in checking this thing out, I do have a link in the description down below. And again, shout out to Shenzhen Audio for loaning this to me for review. While you're down there, if you like this video, if you found it helpful, please do hit the like button. It helps me out. Subscribe to the channel, ding the YouTube bell, and then I'll catch you live on the next super review. And if you're here live now, we'll hang around. Let's have a little chat. All right, let me catch up with live chat as best as possible. And how we doing? Happy Tuesday. War Samir saying what? You said what with exclamation marks? What? I don't know how to respond to that, but how you doing? DNT Arc. There you go. Always appreciate the the early dab. Planet Jace, what's up? From Australia, how you doing? Jorge Fierro, I'm glad you could finally catch one. Hey, I'm glad you could finally catch one as well. And Planet Jace, so $900 for their first effort ballsy. Now, just to be clear, I think this is not Colorfly's first IM. I could tell on their website they have one other IM listed. I didn't really look into how that one's priced because the entire website is in Chinese. But this, I think, is based on what I can tell from their website, at least their second IM. And their DApps, again, I didn't look into the pricing on those, but they look pretty fancy. So I'm guessing this brand is generally selling pretty pricey gear. And I think, you get wood accessories. That's pretty cool. I don't know if that's worth $900, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, the Colorfly Quintet, $900. Yeah, if this was a cheaper IM, it would be, a pretty solid recommendation for that base quality. And as it is at $900, I think I didn't really bring in comparisons here, but, for my money, I'm going to start looking at things like the Moondrop S8, which is one of my favorite IMs under $1,000. You got to look at things like Campfire Andromeda, even the Dunu Zen. I think this is... Yeah, the Dunu Zen's got a little bit more special sauce to it, so take that into consideration. But maybe this is about competitive with the Zen, but a little bit better tonally, but doesn't quite have that special sauce of that single dynamic driver in the Zen. But yeah. Grant Patalo, how's it going? Nice to see you again, as always. David K, how you doing? Good evening, afternoon, whatever. It is... almost 4:30. It's about 4:30 p.m. here in California. I think that counts as late afternoon. What's up, Jeremy Kiros? Rob Hawk, always good to see you. And yeah, $900 dues. I didn't put much thought into ahead of this review. Like, what if I were spending $900? What would I buy? I mean, the Moondrop S8 would be my obvious answer, but that's not going to be for everybody, especially if you're looking for a dynamic driver base, because the bass here on the Quintet is better than the bass on the S8. I don't know. Kayade is saying, I would not put that carry case in my pocket or in my bag. I mean, I think you could fit this in a bag, no problem, but this definitely feels like the sort of thing that is made more to sit on a table or a shelf, put it up there with your cigars and... What else do rich people put on their shelves? I don't know. Grant Patella, I noticed that Mark likes the word ostensibly. I'm going to see if he says it in this video. Did you keep count? How many times did I say it? Because I probably did. DNTR pointing out, I think a good point, the IM companies really like including toothbrushes, but they never include any toothpaste. SMH. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe I've got it wrong and it's not actually supposed to be a toothbrush. Maybe. Grandpa tossing, it looks like walnut. The wood looks like walnut. I don't know how to confirm that. It smells good. Does walnut smell good? Yeah, I'm not very good with wood types or finishes or anything like that, which you might imagine I should be, considering my dad's a carpenter. But no, I didn't learn any of that. Grant asking if Colorfly made the large retro DAP with the volume slider. No, that was Aureolus. Yeah, I think you're thinking of the DPS L2, or I think it was the DPS L2. Brian Young saying wire in the cable, I loathe that. Oh yeah, just to clarify, there's no like wire in this hook. This is a preformed sort of heat shrinked, wrapped and shaped ear hook, which is generally how I like it. I saw that, yeah, Brian, I also agree. I don't like having wires in the ear hook that are bendable. Maybe that makes sense for people who are really like performers who really need a really tight custom fit, but for me it just makes the earphone extra fiddly every time I want to put it on. Still catching up with live chat. Thanks for your patience. Abel Santiago saying, "Damn it, Doobie looking fresh." Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty fresh look. I think the black cable with the gold print there, the consistent silver parts right there, the wood chin cinch, like, yeah, this is a pretty handsome looking earphone combined with this little case. Like, I don't know, that feels like that belongs on a rich person's shelf, but I don't have any rich people shelves. I just got IKEA shelves. Big Boss saying the treble seems to be hard to nail in the sub-kilobuck range unless you look to the leading chi-fi companies like Moondrop or Tantrum or Prisma Audio. Yeah, just to clarify, Prisma Audio, definitely not chi-fi. But yeah, treble, I don't know, that might just be where I'm the most picky about my sound, that, you know, I rarely find something with treble that I love. But yeah, I think you're probably right. The treble's, it seems to be the hardest to do. I've never built an IM, obviously, so I don't know that for certain. But it does seem to be the hardest to find a really good treble in an IM. What are some good treble IMs at around $1,000? So I mentioned the Andromeda. That's got pretty nice treble to it. The Moondrop S8, obviously. You already mentioned Moondrop. I don't know why I'm blanking right now at thinking. So the Dunu Zen treble, not at standout characteristic there. Even the Moondrop Illumination, honestly, treble's a little bit on the weak and dull side. I mean, the Dunu SA6 has pretty good treble. Not quite S8 quality treble, but it's pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, even like one of my favorite IMs, the Moondrop Blessing 2, treble there is not, it's not its strength. So yeah, treble's tough to do. Oh, and David K saying cable is just a 3.5 millimeter. Yes, this is just a standard 3.5 millimeter cable here on the Quintet, which personally I don't mind. I know actually it's becoming the trend that a lot of IMs are coming with either multiple cables or they're coming with swappable terminations. You can make it a balanced cable versus a standard single-ended cable. I like that trend. Like, I like giving people the option, but for me, I only ever use 3.5 millimeter anyway. So for me, this is not a problem. This is not a detractor, but I can definitely imagine if you've got a balanced digital audio player, you've got a high-end DAP, and you want to hook up something like a high-end Colorfly Quintet, you might want that balanced connector. I can understand that. Zion Guy saying exact same shape as the Thea Audio Legacy 5. So just to clarify, I think this thing actually fits me a little bit better than something like the Legacy 5. The Legacy 4, I would say, is like just about my ideal fit for an IM. Legacy 5 for me is a little bit bigger, and I have a harder time getting a good fit with that one, but it's still fine. This, I would say, fits somewhere in the middle in terms of size, but it's closer to the Legacy 4. Yeah, this is just a really good fitting IM, at least for my ears. Abel Santiago, it's $800 above my budget. So your budget is $100. Some pretty good options there. In fact, a couple that I'm reviewing right now. So I'm currently evaluating the FiO FD3. I also just got in the Triple Win Cross Bad Guy Melee. I'll be reviewing that soon. Anything else in that price range that I'm evaluating? What else am I looking at? No, I'm doing the C Audio Bravery, but that's about $280. But yeah, there's some stuff. There's some stuff in that price range for sure. Oh, and Zion Guy, you're saying that the Thea Audio Legacy 5 was endgame for me. My recommendation, you should try this out. I think it's worth trying out. You can buy online impedance adapters. They're basically just like little 3.5 millimeter connectors. Kind of looks like this without the cable, but you connect it to the end of a cable and it adds impedance to the cable. And I found that the Legacy 5, with about 15 ohms of impedance added to the cable, became even better, at least for my preferences. I'm pretty happy with the bass. I mean, it's more bass than my typical preference, but it's pretty nice. I imagine, 15 ohm impedance adapters aren't not the most common. If you found like a 20 ohm, that would probably give you a pretty similar effect as well. Coyote asking, have I heard of the Vento conductor? I was interested in that IM, but I can't find any info. No, I haven't heard about the Vento conductor. Scott Pleasure, so which of the 2 violins, 2 violas, and 1 cello were missing from this quintet to warrant the 3 out of 5 rating? Is that what a quintet means? Like, I mean, I interpret a quintet to be 5 because there's 5 drivers in here, and I know a group of 5 you could call a quintet, but does a quintet in symphony space and like in that sort of musical space, does it have like a specific definition for a combination of instruments? Because if so, that's new to me, but I'm not a big classical listener. Shen Shen, I'm here to say earbuds. Earbuds indeed. Brian Young, you said to remind you of the idea of going over reviewer targets on Squig. Here's a reminder. I appreciate the reminder. Keep reminding me. Thank you. Tim Baxter, I received the Blessing 2 Dusk last week and really like them. Thanks for the help. Awesome. That's a great IM. Precog Vision, hello. What's up, man? Grant Patala, it sounds like you also received the Blessing 2 Dusk and you like them. That's not surprising. It's a very good sounding IM. That's the Dusk is one that I think is gonna be hard to not enjoy. Yeah. Things is asking, what do you consider the best sub $200 IMs for isolation? I was looking into OH10 and Z Reviews was positive about it. So specifically for isolation, I'm not sure. Let me do something real quick though. That was not what I wanted to do. Okay, that will suffice. Let's go over here, show my iPad. And we'll go over to squig.link, which if you're not familiar with this is my website. And go into the rankings tab where I've got a list of all the different IMs that I've measured along with ratings. And you said up to $200, so we'll filter this to 150. Well, let's go ahead and filter it to 100 to $200, and then we'll filter it to 4 and 5 stars. So you asked for the most isolating IM up to $200. The answer is actually probably going to be really obvious and really easy, and it's actually under that price range, and it's going to be the Etymotic stuff. So the Etymotic ER2XR, if you're just looking for a really good sounding IM that also isolates fantastically, it's going to be hard to beat the ER2XR. But let's say you don't want something that fits quite that deep. It's pretty deep though. So we'll take a look at 100 up to $150. So my favorite IM up to that price, or between 100 and 150, right now would be the FH3. I would say isolation on that is about average. Same with the OH1, it's about average. Starfield, it's about average. If we increase our price, the Maga OC K5, I would say isolation on that is a bit above average. That's actually pretty good isolation, a nice secure fit, and it doesn't even fit that deep into the ear canals. So that could be a pretty good kind of like anti-ER2 option. The Hana, great sounding IM. Isolation, I would say, is pretty average. Same with the Hana 2021. Here's the Etymotic ER4, which has the same isolating properties of the ER2. OH10, which you mentioned, very good sounding IM, but isolation, I would say, is average. Same with the Kanas Pro, same with the KXX. The Shozi CP isolation is a little bit better than average. But yeah, I don't know. There you go. I don't know that was necessarily helpful, but maybe kind of a demonstration of how you can use squig.link rankings lists to narrow down your choices based on my preferences, and I'll caveat that is all my preferences. But when it comes specifically to, narrowing it down by something like isolation, most things are average, which I guess is kind of baked into the term average. The things that are pretty standout are the ones that I mentioned, the Etymotic stuff and probably the Maga OCK5. Big Boss saying rich people put K and fantasy on their shelves. Yeah, maybe. Kaede, you're suggesting anime figures. Perhaps it's very possible. Brian Young saying rich people put art that no one else understands on their shelves. That's possible too. Do I have any of that? I have none of that. I don't think I qualify. Damascus Cut saying I kind of wish there were more black cables on the market. And yeah, I can understand that. Check out AliExpress and look up the brand XINHS. It's a cable brand or a brand that makes cables, and they've got a lot of really nice cables at really reasonable prices, and I'm pretty sure they've got some black ones. Scott Pleasure saying that cable looks nicer than what 64 audio tends to include, and I agree. At least based on the 64 audio cables that I've used, this cable here on the Colorfly is indeed better than those, but that's also not a very high bar. O2 asking me when is my IM. I don't know that we'll ever do that. I want to make a DAP. If someone wants to make a DAP with me, let me know. David K, if I had $1,000 to spend on headphones, would anything even be worth it? I'll say just up front, like my experience with headphones above $500 is fairly limited, so I haven't heard anything. Honestly, I've heard some expensive headphones and I haven't really heard anything that I like more than the Sennheiser HD600s. The Hyphaman Aria, that's a headphone I haven't heard, so it's possible that one would be worth it. But again, like a lot of it really just comes down to, does it sound good? Does it sound like what you want it to sound like? And that's a very personal thing, but also does it have the physical attributes that you want? Is it comfortable? Does it feel like it's built well? Does it inspire confidence? And at least for me, those are the things that start making something feel like it's worth me stretching my budget to get, right? This is kind of, it's kind of how I feel about a lot of things, and whether you're shopping for headphones or shopping for camera equipment or shopping for cars or motorcycles or clothes or anything like that. It's like there's the amount that I want to spend, and there's the amount that it costs to get the things I want. And those things that I want, they've got to have some special properties for me to want to extend the amount that I want to spend to include those. Urs Dubel, I bought some Sennheiser IE100 Pro. They're good. Okay, there you go. 100 bugs. I haven't heard that one. I heard the IE40 Pro and then the IE300, but I know they've got that new IE100, and I haven't heard that one yet. Abel Santiago, do I use different IMs for different genres? The answer is no. Yeah, I get questions a lot about like which IM should I get for X genre. I'm really into EDM. Which IM should I get? And my response is always, I really don't make genre-based generalizations for a couple of reasons. Like, well, actually, I mean, it's honestly just one big reason, in that I don't find that genres all sound the same, right? Even a given, this is an example I've given too, is like even within a given artist, right? Erasure is one example of an artist that I listen to. It's kind of an electro pop out artist from, like the 80s and 90s, and they still make some music, but they've got a bunch of different albums, and their albums they're all in roughly the same genre, but same artist, same genre, and their albums sound pretty different. Like some of their albums are very bright, some of their albums are very dark, and like, how do I recommend a single IM that works best for just that one artist, let alone for the entire genre that artist is part of? So that's why I'm starting to get to the point that I'm annoyed by the question about genre recommendation, so I apologize if I come across as a little bit short, but it feels like a completely useless way of interpreting or predicting like how much you will enjoy a particular headphone or earphone. Scott, you're saying that, yeah, that is a standard combination for a standard string quintet. However, any combination of 5 musicians playing is technically a quintet. So if there are 5 musicians like playing their armpits, does that count as a quintet? Sam G is saying, would love to hear your impressions of the 7 Hertz Timeless. Yeah, I'm pretty interested in that IM. For folks who are not aware, 7 Hertz Timeless, it is a planar magnetic driver IM, which is somewhat rare in the IM space. But maybe even more rare is that it looks to actually have some pretty good tuning, which for some reason is difficult for planar magnetic drivers. And I don't say that sarcastically. I don't know anything about designing IMs. It just seems that a lot of the IMs that have planar magnetic drivers in them, the tuning is a little bit sus. And the 7 Hertz, it looks pretty normal. Oh, but I guess maybe to further answer your questions, I don't have any plans to listen to it at this point. I'm interested to hear it, but nothing planned right now. Mina the Villager, can't wait for my FH3. Any recommendation for a USB dongle around 100 to 200 bucks? Gonna use it for the Redmi Note. I have not used a USB dongle that to me makes it worth more than just using the Apple dongle, which is $9. So maybe not the answer you were looking for, but yeah, I would save 190 bucks, $191. Just get the Apple dongle. It sounds great, and it'll work well on even your Redmi Note. Brian Young saying, I think the Hana is my next IM. Haven't heard a bad review for them. Yeah, especially, I actually still prefer the original Hana, but I know that is for my preferences. And if you watch this channel, you know my preferences are for less bass than most people's other people's preferences. So yeah, it's not surprising at all to me that the new Hana, which has more bass, is getting very, very good reviews, because it's a very solid set. Onkar, what do I think of the KZ ZAS? I'm not familiar with that one. It's been a while since I listened to a KZ IM, to be honest, so I haven't been following their new stuff. The last KZ, I don't know if the ZAS is necessarily in the ZS line, but I heard the ZS10. I reviewed that, and it was almost like 2 years ago at this point. So I haven't really, I'm not sure, where they've gone from then. I know they have released a number of new IMs since then. I just haven't heard them myself. Mahmood, what's the best IM for details under 200 bucks? I don't really know how to answer that question, to be honest. And Abo, I think this is following my talk about the genre, saying that makes sense, no problem at all. Yeah, thank you. David K saying, plus there's so many subgenres, genre mixing, etc. It's really an impossible question. And that's kind of how I feel. I don't know, maybe other people have different experiences, and that's totally fine, but just from my perspective, I am not comfortable at all about making earphone recommendations based on music genres. But yeah, folks, I think that is going to do it for this review. Thank you all for hanging around and having a conversation. I enjoyed it. But yeah, if you haven't already, please do hit the like button down below. It really does help me out. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, but you're hanging around now. You probably already subscribed. Ding the YouTube bell, and then I'll catch you on the next super review. Have a good week. Cheers.